Hello, you're listening to Milo Talks. I'm your host, Milo, traveling, living, and working full-time from my Class B van, meeting people along the way and asking them to share their stories with me. And I believe that in all these stories, we might just find a little bit more about ourselves. I love when I start these off with a confession. Kirk Benson and I have known each other for years, and he actually had been listening to my podcast, which is amazing because, I love to know that people I know listen, and I love that support. So when he said he was interested in being on the podcast, I'm like, well, what about? Like, what would we talk about? And he does financial consulting, which I did not know. And the confession is this: I really wasn't interested in hearing because we don't talk about that. We don't talk. The people, my friends, my close friends, we rarely ever talk about money or budgeting, and it sounds horrible and boring. But then I really started thinking about it, and I realized that everything I have because I made a plan, and I made a budget, and that is how I ended up in my van. And it wasn't through luck. It wasn't through winning a lottery. It wasn't through anything like that. It was through planning. It was through strategic, thoughtful planning. And to be fair, finding the right van at the right time because the family was ready. But if I had not had my money lined up in place, this would not have happened. If I didn't have the deposit, the good credit, this wouldn't have happened. So I said, yes, let's do a podcast. So this is my conversation with my good friend, Kirk Benson. So Kirk Benson, what is the name of your business?
The business name is Pro Action Financial Coaching.
Now, when we met way back in the day, you were in the Navy.
I've been working for the Navy for 33 years now.
Oh, short time. So you're just getting started. Great. When are you going to finally retire from the Navy?
I plan to retire in about 8 years.
Okay, so hold on. As a financial advisor, would you not have set yourself up so that you could retire like today?
Well, I'm actually a financial coach, but we'll talk about that. And that's actually part of my plan. So, I've got my military retirement from uniform. I get a monthly pension already. And then this is my federal service retirement as a Navy civilian. So that's a second income stream for me. So that actually is part of my retirement plan.
Do you have a success story that you can share with me without giving names?
One example I'll tell you about is a young couple that I was working with. And they're like around 29, 30 years old. They had about $230,000 in debt, including a house. And they made about $70,000 in income. And so we devised a plan. I put them on this plan to be completely debt-free. So all their debt minus their mortgage in under 5 years, and have a fully funded emergency fund of $12,000. And then start investing in their college for their children and for their retirement. And so that's a success story right there. The plan that I laid out for them. And what it really provided them was hope. So they saw that there was a light at the end of the tunnel, that it was feasible. That wasn't going to take decades. It was just going to take under 5 years. And that really motivated them to do whatever they could to work on their debt and get out. And so, of course, they're still working that plan.
So does your plans include eating top ramen and mac and cheese? Or do you still get to
Yeah.
Oh, no.
It can. Of course, if you're familiar with a budget, you basically take all your planned income for the next month and you put it at the top of the page, and then you subtract all your planned expenses until you get to zero. And you basically, every dollar that you have coming in, you put a category on it. And my goal as a financial coach is to help them find extra money in their budget. So I'll look at their budget that they initially put together and say, for example, they have $300 for dining out, going out to eat. Well, if they're really in the hurt locker with debt, I'll say, you may not want to eat out anymore, So take that $300 that you plan to go eat out and apply it towards your debt. And so I squeeze out the money because the faster they can pay off debt, the faster they're going to get their income back. Because a person's biggest wealth building tool is their income. When you're paying on debt, that income's going to something else. It's actually going to someone else. And so it's not working for you. And so I really focus on getting people out of debt first before they start investing.
Well, do you know the math on this? How many people in the United States live well beyond their means? Is there has to be a number for that?
Well, I can tell you, I don't memorize all the statistics, of course, but one statistic that stands out is about 80% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. So that means when the end of the month comes, they have no money. They're waiting for that next paycheck. And when you think about that, 80%, that's pretty significant.
That's huge, actually.
Yeah.
So especially when we come to a place where some of those people now don't have work because they've either been laid off or furloughed because of COVID. So you said something about they had $12,000 in an emergency fund, and I realized in our conversation, our brief conversation we had earlier, you also brought up the emergency fund. Is that where do you set the number for an emergency fund? Like, and what do you mean? Like, why would I need something like that?
Well, I'm not a big fan of using credit to buy anything except a house, because that's a huge purchase. So even a car, ideally, I would recommend that you pay cash for. And of course, you got to save up money to buy a car. I would never recommend buying a new car. So a good fully funded emergency fund would be 3 to 6 months worth of monthly expenses. So that's not necessarily your income that you're receiving each month. It's the minimum amount you need to live, which would be your rent or your mortgage, your utilities, food, your gas for your car, upkeep on your car, things like that. Just the bare minimum. So say if you lost your job and there's no income coming in, you're going to go through your budget and you're going to cut out a lot of things. You should cut out a lot of things like cable TV, things like that, and get it down to the bare minimum. And that would be your a monthly expense right there. And so if you have 3 to 6 months worth of expenses, and that's going to hold you over for 6 months, perhaps, if some emergency pops up.
Okay. So 3 to 6 months is an emergency fund. Ideally, is a good one.
It's a good emergency fund. Of course, you could have more. Now, less is not a good idea. More is fine.
Sure.
The more you have, the better.
So when you were raising your 5 kids, did you have all this down? Like, were you guys using spreadsheets and charts to budget yourselves?
Well, I'm definitely a spreadsheet king. I love spreadsheets. So, yes, I did have spreadsheets going.
And you did it on your own, or did you use a coach yourself at that time?
Not a specific coach. Some of your listeners may have heard of a gentleman named Dave Ramsey, and he's a radio talk show host, a financial guru, if you will. And I started listening to him on the radio like 20 years ago. And he kind of teaches these same principles that I have followed for Melissa and I, and that I'd like to teach others because it does work.
Well, I actually was able to get out of debt because someone had recommended the technique where you pay on your biggest interest credit card first. Like you make more than you just put everything you can towards it, pay it off.
Right.
And then you take that same, so let's say I paid $100 a month towards that card and I got it completely paid off. And then I take that same $100 plus the minimum payment of the other card, the next card on the list. And pay it off. Right. What is there a term for that? Because I feel like I over-explained it.
So that's one method. That's called the debt avalanche.
Okay. I like that name.
So I like to teach the debt snowball. It's different from that. And so the debt snowball is actually lining up your debts, except your home, from the smallest balance to the largest balance. And then you pay minimum payments on all the other debt except that smallest one, and you attack that small one, with a vengeance, to get that paid off as soon as you can. And the reason I do that is, Dave Ramsey says that math or personal finance is only 20% math, but 80% behavior. Everyone can do math. If it were all math, no one would ever be in debt because they would never go below zero. But it's all behavior, it's habits. And so that's one of my goals, is to help people develop new habits.
Sure.
So the debt snowball is when you pay off that small debt, that's a little victory.
Yeah.
And those little victories you want to celebrate. And, as a coach, I encourage clients when they have a victory like that. And then you take all that money that was going on that small debt and you could take it down to the next one. And so it's a relatively quick victory because it's a smaller debt. But these little victories help your motivation to keep continuing down the snowball.
That's interesting.
And so you mentioned the interest rates. Now, that does not take into account interest rates. And over time, mathematically, you may end up paying a little bit more, but it's not really significant because it's helping you become more motivated to get it done.
So you teach behavior.
Well, I can't teach behavior. I can provide advice and suggestions on how people can change their behavior.
Okay, that's
people have
fair.
to change their own behaviors. They have to develop their own habits. But I can provide recommendations.
I belong to several groups that deal with van life and people who live full time in their RVs, cars, vans, anything with wheels. And one of the biggest things for people who are on those sites who are kind of just watching and asking questions, they keep saying that they're saving up for. So your advice is don't buy new. And do you feel it that way across the board, regardless of whether it's an RV or a car?
Oh, absolutely. Because anything with wheels decreases in value immediately. As they say, the cliche, you lose 25% of your vehicle's worth when you drive it off the lot. That's really true. So you don't want to invest in something that's going to decline in value. Your whole idea is to increase your net worth. So I would recommend buying a reliable used car that might be 2 or 3 years old that is already going to be depreciated down to a better price. And it's still going to be a good car. It may have, 30,000 miles on it, but it's still going to be a good car that's going to last you a while. And of course, I would recommend paying cash.
And I get, okay. Good luck with some of those purchases.
All right.
Do you know how expensive vans are?
Explain.
Okay, so I'll just flat out tell you, I didn't pay cash for mine. I didn't have the money saved, so I had to get a loan for this vehicle. So now the vehicle, which is also my home, is now my only debt. So, but I don't think I have the best interest rate. And can you refinance? Do you know? Can you refinance on a car loan?
Sure, absolutely.
Oh, I can. So because I've saved money, so which is better? Should I put the money that I have in savings and throw it into refinancing the vehicle to get a lower interest and a smaller payment? Or should I keep paying what I'm paying over time and just, and pay off lumps, like put an extra payment on a year? My grandmother used to do that. She used to just add an extra payment every year on her property.
Right, and that saves a lot of interest, actually.
Okay.
So what I would do in your case, since your van is your home, let's treat that like your home, like your mortgage.
Okay.
And so what I would do is I would ensure that, so you have no other debt, like you mentioned. I would ensure that you have your fully funded emergency fund.
Okay.
And then anything above that that's in your savings, I would just apply to that loan.
Okay. And that helps knock the principal down.
So if you, or just refinance it, and then you won't have pay off with any additional money you have to bring the loan down to a lower balance.
Okay.
And try to get a lower interest rate, of course, and then of course your payment's going to be smaller and the balance is going to be smaller. And then I would attack that with whatever money you can find. I'd sell things.
Sell things, like
try to make some extra income and charge people to listen to your podcast.
Yeah,
whatever.
Okay. I do have some stickers that I'm coming up with that I was gonna, charge $1 for. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to make additional income.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And okay, so when you first mentioned that you're interested in sharing with me what you do, I wasn't exactly excited about it, but what caught me is that you seem to really love it. I get it. We're different personality types. I've known that since the day we met. But
Yeah,
you actually seem to be joyful about this whole financial coaching.
I am. Yeah,
What
definitely.
is it? Go
It
ahead.
motivates me to help other people. I mean, I enjoy helping people, and I enjoy helping people succeed. And when I first talk to them, I offer a free consultation. I'm sitting down with them for an hour and a half, and one of the biggest things I ask them is, what is your why? Why are you doing this? Why did you reach out? What do you want out of this? What do you want for your family, for yourself? And so they just kind of talking off their head and give me their thoughts. And then I frame those thoughts into 2 or 3 sentences. And every time we talk again, I repeat their why. And I said, this is your why. This is why you're doing it. Always think about your why, because that's your goal. That's your compass guiding you to get there. And remember all these things you're doing, making sacrifices to, perhaps take a second job or, earn some extra income to pay down this debt and get an emergency fund and start investing for yourself, for retirement or your children's college. Think about the why, what you want. Because no one's going to get you. No one's going to take you there. You got to get there yourself. So it's very exciting. It's very exciting.
I get to see why that excites you to help. When you frame it like that, you're still in the service of others. Since you've been in the service of our country for 30 some years. So you don't really focus on investing. It's more like just getting your money straight, getting out of debt.
Investing is part of the program. Once you get up to that step, once you have your fully funded emergency fund, that's when I recommend people start investing. So my recommendation is they invest 15% of their gross annual income towards retirement, and then everything else after that would go towards children's college, or if they don't have children, or if they don't want to fund their college, then go pay it towards your house.
Do you have to invest, Kirk? Do you have to put money into something that seems to fluctuate? The stock market's always like up and down. It seems like a scary thing to like be gambling your money with, as opposed to just putting
it can be scary.
my money into my mattress, which I don't because I would be dumb. But if you know what I mean? Like, what's wrong with just putting your money in a savings account? 15% of your income into a savings account.
Well, a savings account's going to earn about 1% interest or less. So it's not going to really make you money. Your money's going to be very safe there. So there's really no risk, because it's most banks are insured by the FDIC. So your money's going to be safe there. You're not going to lose it for sure. It really depends on how much time you have to invest. Now, over the long term, the stock market always goes up. Now, there's always fluctuations, goes up and down. But if you look at the graph of it from the beginning of time when they started tracking the stock market, it's climbing up. And so if you have time to invest, then that's the way to go. And I'll give you another example. Working with a young couple, they're like 22 years old. They just graduated college. They're getting married next year, and we've worked on their budget, and they've determined based on their anticipated jobs that they can save $500 a month. And again, they're 22. So they put that in the stock market using mutual funds, individual retirement accounts like a Roth IRA or traditional IRA. By the time they retire, that's going to be, $2 to $3 million at $500 a month if they continue to put it in every month until they retire. I mean, that the compound interest and the time are really going to make their money grow. So, if you get into retirement with $2 million, what can you do with that? Anything. You can live off the interest and take off $200,000 a year, just the interest, if it's a 10% return. That's a pretty good deal. But it takes discipline.
Sure. So that's probably a little bit easier for I say easier, as far as knowing that they have the time that they can invest. But what if you're 45, 50, 55 years old and you want to start investing in your retirement? Is it too late?
So 45, 50, how long do you plan to work? I'm 55, and, I'm hoping by the time I'm 75 that I'm still working, doing something, making some money. So that's 20 years. 20 years is a good amount of time to invest. As it gets closer, you can invest in less risky options. And that's where I would send someone to a financial advisor, someone who really understands the market and the different risks for the different products they sell. But as far as general investing, you mentioned that you don't work for a company. If someone did work for a company and their employer offered, they match, say 5% of the income, that would be the priority. Is take the match because that's free money. If you don't have the match, then you can invest in a Roth IRA. So you go to a financial advisor, and you can, when you're under 50 years old, you can invest up to $6,000 a year. $6,000 a year into an individual retirement account, a Roth account, and that's after-tax money. So when you take it out in the future, it's tax-free. And so if you go beyond that $6,000 a year, then you would go to a traditional IRA, which is after taxes. So you put after-tax income in a traditional IRA, and then when you take that out, that would be, you'd have to pay taxes. Traditional IRA is before tax money. And then when you take it out, you would be paying taxes on that. So there is a hierarchy there of how you can invest. You don't have to work for a company to invest.
I did have a friend who had asked, she wanted to know about investing. She has 2 children. She's a single mom. So, and she's in her 30s. You said 15% to invest in your retirement. And what about college for your kids?
So college, I've met a lot of people that feel obligated to invest for their college and some that don't. So with Melissa and I, we have a large family with 5 kids. That would be a lot of money to have to save. So our college strategy was to make sure they were smart so they would get scholarships. And it worked.
I know some of your kids. They are smart.
Yeah, they're smart. So, many of of the 5 kids, we paid very little for college. For our oldest, Philip, who's 30 now, we did save for him since he was born. And the money, plus he did get scholarships, but he actually had money left over when he got his bachelor's degree. And then the 4 other kids all had pretty much full ride scholarships completely.
Do you have any other advice you'd like to leave?
Well, you got to have a plan. So you got to, when I'm coaching my clients, we talk about their why, and then we talk about goals. And I spend a lot of time, usually the very first session, talking about their why and their goals. And it's so important to have goals and to write them down. And the goals need to be specific and measurable and have a time factor. Say, I just want to be debt-free when I'm older. Well, that's not good enough. Say, I want to be debt-free after I pay this $20,000 off by January 2023. You have to make it very specific and measurable. So when you get there and you know that you've made it, you know that it's done because you have a measurable factor in there. So I have people write down their goals, and I have them look at long-term goals, medium-term, and short-term goals. And constantly, again, write those goals down, refer back to them, share them with friends so your friends can hold you accountable. And, put down your goals, what you want in life, and then figure out what it takes to get there and do it. That's the big thing. And then as far as controlling your money, it's important to go on a budget. You got to create a budget. A lot of people think that a budget is a negative thing, that it's restrictive. But you decide what you're going to spend your money on. It's totally up to you. And you can change it if you want. It just allows you to control it, to tell it where to go instead of your money telling you where it went. So it gives you complete control. So when people get on a budget that's part of their plan, they seem to step through a lot easier. So those are the 2 biggest things that I put out.
So here's my final question for you, and it's more of a thought. Why do you think finances take such a back seat? Like if we're overweight, if we have wrinkles, if we have gray hair, if we are single, if we're depressed, we reach out and there's tons of information out there. I don't actually think as Americans that we are really good with money. Why? Why do you think that is?
Well, because most people like to live in the now. And living in the now in some areas is good, but they like that instant gratification. So they go to a store and they see this fancy electronic thing, and they just know that if they buy that right now and put it on their credit card, that they're just going to love it. And then after a few months, they don't love it anymore. One thing with finances is, ideally finance finances help you focus on your future, and your future is not in the now. So it kind of falls to the back seat because it doesn't matter right now. But the earlier you plan for your future, the better future you're going to have.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to be as excited about it as you are.
You should be.
But you have helped me make my mind up on how I want to handle the big debt that I have, which is my van. And hopefully
Great.
This will also resonate with some people out there that are searching for their future vans, or if they're in the same situation I am, where they still have that debt, on how to kind of deal with it. Now, you are going to share with me your email and how to contact you, so that people who would like to talk to you can reach out to you. And that will be available in my comments in all of my listings for you, so people can find you. You want to tell me your email address?
Sure. So my email address is Kirk, K-I-R-K, at proactioncoaching.org. Proactioncoaching.org.
Okay.
And what proaction is proactive action. So I'm challenging people to take proactive action for their financial health. And then the website is www.proactioncoaching.org. And I'll even offer to your listeners a 15% discount on coaching services if they mention your name.
Oh, really?
Sure.
So they just have to say my name and they get a discount?
You can say, I know Milo, or I heard you on Milo Talks.
That's amazing. I don't think my name's ever been worth anything like that, like a discount.
And also, I'd like to throw out one other site is my Facebook group. If you just search for Proactive Financial Health, I got a group on there, and I post things every day that hopefully will help people, and I encourage some dialogue, and the whole purpose of it is to teach people new things. So search for Proactive Financial Health on Facebook.
Okay. I'll make sure all those are also attached in the links below. And thanks for taking my call.
Yeah, you bet, Milo. Thanks. It's great to talk with you.
It's always
Hope to get to Colorado and visit you.
Oh, okay.
I love Colorado.
or I'll just see you when I get back to the South. That
Are you
works
coming
too.
back?
Well, of course, someday.
All right, Marlon. It's great to talk with you. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. As always, thank you so much for listening to my podcast. I'll hope you join me next time when I speak with my new friend, Zena, who did a solo trip to Alaska. And guess what? She did it on a budget. Make sure you don't miss that episode. And don't forget, if you'd like to reach out, you can email me at milotalkstostrangers@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for listening. You can find me at Facebook at Milo Talks, and also you can email me at milotalkstostrangers@gmail.com.